And the hunt for 19-year-old Jay Slater has entered its 10th day after he was reported missing while on holiday with friends in Tenerife.
Specialist search teams have been concentrating on rural de Tenno Park, which is the area where the teenager's phone was last tracked before it ran out of battery.
But away from the official investigation, online trolls and so-called armchair detectives are hijacking the case by spreading shocking conspiracy theories about his disappearance.
And as the speculation continues on social media, Isla Traquair is joining us alongside former detective Peter Bleksley to explain why amateur sleuths are doing more harm than good. I mean, this is getting a little bit frightening now, and the fact that people are getting involved in it as well seems to be harming the case.
And it's going beyond the armchair, and people are actually going there. And I will get onto that in a minute, because some of them are actually legitimate, have mountaineering experience, might be helping. But there's a lot of people who aren't. Let me just quickly do a recap. Of the timeline. So we know he'd been at this event, this 3-day festival. Friends go home. He goes off with 2 people up to an Airbnb, a 45-minute drive to a very mountainous region. He then he's posting on Snapchat at 7:30 in the morning. We know that he's there. He then goes to a bus stop. He meets a local. He asks her when's the next bus. It's not. She indicates 10 o'clock, so it's 2 hours later. But instead of waiting, he decides to walk off. But interestingly, he goes in the wrong direction from where he's supposed to be going. Now, my thought is, he's British, you're standing on the side of the road, you're thinking it's going one direction, it's going the other, so he's maybe just made that mistake. 15 to 20 minutes later, she drives past him and he's continuing on that main road.
The person that he asked?
The person he'd asked the directions from is later in a car and passes him, so he's going that direction. And then, round about that time, 8:30, round about 10 to 9, he then makes a phone call to his friend. And this is crucial because this is the information we know is fact. He's got 1% battery. He's dehydrated. He's disorientated. He's up in the mountain. He's attempting to walk home. And, he's cut himself on a cactus and he's in the mountains. So this is all the fact, and that's what we know, and his phone goes dead. So there's so many theories here, and this is what we've got to try and Peter will tell the same. We've got to, the fact from the fiction. He's up in this remote area in a state of probably not much sleep, dehydrated, etc. And if you look at this terrain, if you look at photographs, it doesn't look that bad, but there's this big, winding, wiggly road. And if you're trying to walk, you could think, do you know what, I'm just going to cut across, not realising how treacherous it is. Now, I've done a deep dive with some of these TikTokers who are actually on site, and there's one in particular I'm going to highlight, who I'm not going to criticise. I think his name is, Paul Arnott. He's an actual mountaineering person, an expert, and he knows what he's doing. He's actually assisting the police, although he's done more than 50 videos himself, so he's, there's 2 sides to it. But this is treacherous. You need ropes, you need expertise. I mean, I boulder and I wouldn't even attempt to do some of this.
And this is him doing that.
So this is showing you there's caves, there's caverns. This is really dangerous. If he's gone off-piste, so to speak, and got himself in a pickle and disorientated and can't work out if he should go back up the way he came or down. And yes, they've had drones, they've had helicopters, as of yesterday, they had specialist search dogs, but this TikToker was saying the dogs can't even access these areas, so he's going to them and he's actually trying to borrow some equipment to go there. So this is not an easy search. And if he is out there, we know the likelihood is now that someone cannot survive that long in the wilderness. It's very cold at night, it's very hot during the day without water.
OK.
So
let's speak to Peter. Peter, if we can bring you in at this stage, because, of course, you have experience of investigations like this. It's interesting. I'm sure you've been sort of intrigued, frustrated by the conspiracy theories that have come up surrounding what's been going on. What have you made of the investigation so far? And what do you make of the likes of these TikTokers that are going out and seemingly helping, but also putting out information as well?
Well, to deal with the first part of your question, clearly the senior investigating officer is focusing on one theory, and that would be very much what's laid out by Isla, in so much as that he's wandered off perhaps and got disorientated in unfamiliar territory, because that's where we've seen the searches being focused. Helicopters, drones, dogs, people from the fire service and the police and a mountain rescue team. So that clearly is their main working hypothesis, as the British police would call it. With regards to the second part of your question, well, people who've watched 2 episodes of Vera and sit in their armchairs and suddenly think that they're experienced detectives can be more of a hindrance than they are a help. And the senior officer's got to block all that noise, and quite frankly, a lot of it will be nonsense. Block it out, follow the evidence, the information as it's presented to you, and stick to that, whilst, of course, keeping an open mind that there may be something else that applies. And as and when the time to deal with that arises, then I'm sure they will.
We understand that the Spanish police are investigating some of these conspiracy theories, though. What did you make of that?
Yeah, well, a senior officer should delegate an officer to trawl through the reams upon reams upon reams which people will be writing, because it's not beyond the realms of possibility that within there somewhere there is a nugget that may be useful. And of course, the Spanish police, should they at any point have to completely reassess what they're doing and go back, for example, to the very beginning of the apartment that Jay was known to have visited, and then do some kind of forensic examination there, they're going to come in for a huge amount of criticism because, of course, valuable time would have been lost. But for the time being, I'm happy to let them out there on the ground get on with what they're doing.
I mean, Isla, there's also so much noise surrounding this case as well. There was the violent incident that took place in 2021.
Yeah, I mean, it is normal and natural that the police look into this. So he was involved. He was one of a gang of 8 that was convicted for an assault, and a pretty serious one against a 17-year-old boy. The attack involved an axe, golf clubs and a machete, yes. Yeah. Now, he was convicted, he had community service, and he just completed the community service. And this holiday was actually him wanting to put this behind him. It is natural for them to go and look into this. Now, you can imagine online now, he's now, or by the public, he's now viewed as not such an innocent victim. They go, oh, well, he's a bad one. And this is where we have problems, because then the compassion goes, even people in Tenerife thinking, oh, well, you know, it's a bad kid gone missing, well, why would we bother helping? This is not helpful. Also online, interestingly, the victim of this assault has gone on TikTok and said to these conspiracy theorists, these trolls, leave him alone. Imagine, the poor lad's missing. Imagine being in the family, the shoes of his family, which I think is, really big of him to do that, because that is creating noise. But there's other stuff online which is just, I mean, I went into a deep dive very late last night looking into all this. People have posted photos of a body going, this could be his body. And they've traced it to a photograph taken in Iceland. So it's just absolute nonsense. Can you imagine how traumatic that is for his family? There's links to Moroccan drug gangs, organised crime, human trafficking. Now, some legitimately, for example, let's say he's walking along the road, he didn't go off the path, he was abducted. Yeah. That is a legitimate thing they may need to look into. But it's, yes, the noise online and the criticism of him as a person, and also his family. As I mentioned yesterday, there's a GoFundMe. I think we're at 35k now. Yeah. And then there's people online going, oh, they're just on holiday. They're not even looking. This is absolute nonsense. His family are so distraught. There's nothing worse. As a crime journalist, there is nothing worse than a family who have to deal with not knowing what's happened to their loved one. Yeah.
Peter, there is a lot of noise, as Isla's saying, and it's navigating and picking your way through that noise to find those nuggets, those little bits of information that might help the case. But in your experience of being a detective in these sort of scenarios, have you got any thoughts on what has happened to Jay?
I will follow this investigation keenly, as I have done, from afar. But at the moment, we have to remember that the Spanish police will be best placed in terms of what is valid, the information that is credible, valid, fact, and they will conduct their search as a result of that. As for all the nonsense and the waffle, I wish some people could just behave themselves, but sadly, we know that many people have got nothing better to do than spread potentially very hurtful and harmful nonsense online. The police, I hope this comes to some kind of resolution soon, but of course, my fear is, as days progress, this story becomes less likely to be one that has a happy ending.
The La Guardia Civil sent us this statement. La Guardia Civil continues with the search for the young British man who disappeared in the Massacre neighbourhood. Today, several canines of the Civil Guard were dispatched from Madrid with their agents in the search. I think we saw some footage of the dogs being sent down. So thank you both for joining us, Peter. It's good to get your perspective on this, Isla, as ever. And we will stay on top of the case, of course, because I'm not sure, as we're saying, we're going to get any resolution.
No, words of wisdom, though, Peter. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Thank you for visiting our This Morning YouTube channel. We upload tons of new content every single day. So hit the subscribe button, like all the videos, and don't miss out. We'll see you in the morning.